Hold on, I have to pee.
Yeah, I'll wait for you.
Right
Yeah,
back.
we're here. We're not going anywhere. I know Stan wants to leave again for like 20
You
minutes.
can talk to Daisy.
Yeah, Dan wants to leave. You know what I'm doing with you, Dan, right? You know what video I'm going to put while you're gone? Like where your picture's going to be? I'm going to put a clown just doing like juggling and stuff. Well, that's going to be you.
Hey, I hope you guys have your skanking shoes on, because tonight we have something warm and toasty for you. It's the Toasters Bucket. Ska Legends, Sklegends, Scooperly Fun, Skanktanimous. That's not a word.
I don't think anything you said there was a word.
We have bucket guys all the way from the UK/Texas.
Yeah,
Bucket York.
2 tears in a bucket. I like it.
So let's meet Mr. Bucket.
This dude's a man.
Toasters.
Hell yeah.
At all. Hello.
Hello, Val.
Hi. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me.
Pleasure.
Our pleasure.
Definitely. It's our pleasure.
I've been working in the garden making flower beds all morning, so this is my brief moment of respite.
What are you
awesome.
planning? What are you planning?
I've already got a bunch of stuff in pots, like chili peppers mostly, but then some things for other people like tomatoes and a bunch of spices. But my wife and my son both cook. My son thinks he's like Gordon Ramsay. You know that dude? So when he his name is Graham, but when he gets in the kitchen, I just call him Gordon. You know. But that's okay. Yeah, he kind of swears a lot when he's cooking.
That's great. Very cool. Well, Changsta, you want to lead us in?
I'll lead us in. Okay, so I'm sure you've gotten this so many times, but my introduction to you guys was Kablam.
Oh yeah.
I used to watch that all the time, and I used to hear the Clone Army all the time.
You have no idea. How many people have told me that was their portal into ska music generally. You know, just watching that show. And it's actually pretty funny because originally the guy, I can't remember the guy's name, the artist who put it together, but he originally wanted Bad Manners to do the theme tune for the show, and Bad Manners wouldn't do it, whatever. And they said, "Well, we do it." So I wrote the theme tune for the show, and they liked that so much they said, "Can you do all of the music for the whole show, all the bumper music and everything?" So we ended up doing about 80 pieces for them, and it was we were in the studio doing recording the Two-Tone Army or Hard Bad for Dead album at that time. So this was like a side project running concurrently. So what we did is basically took a bunch of the themes and the tunes on the album and like played them in like cowboy ska style or circus style ska, like changed them around a bit and did all the bumper music. So it ended up being about a month's worth of work. And that's how that happened.
Wow, that's crazy.
One of the advantages of having a record label in New York.
That's true.
Yes.
Awesome. All right, Val.
All right. So I grew up in Florida, and I've actually seen you guys at the State Theater. Are you familiar with the State Theater?
Okay. Yeah.
I hope you're familiar if you played there before.
What's the name of that guy? Tony, right? Tony Refugiata. He had the record store across the street.
Yes. I think the record store is still there.
No, you didn't see my COVID cup. You need to see.
It's awesome.
Nice.
Can you read it? Is it backwards? Is it inverted?
Knob. That's all I think. Knob.
It's an English cup. You don't say tosser in American, I don't think.
We don't say bollocks either.
Yeah, but
the word.
The British terms like in cursive stuff are so much better. Knob, tosser, wanker.
British people just swear all the time. That's kind of what we do.
It's hilarious. It's hilarious.
I had an ex-boyfriend from Ireland, and he used to just use the word cunt like it was like, hey, he's a great cunt. And I'm like, what?
Well, the Irish is something else. I take no responsibility for them whatsoever.
I know, totally different wavelength.
There's a story in my family folklore that it's possible that my grandfather was Irish, but nobody, I could never find out the truth about that. There's like some wartime romance between my great grandmother and him, but that's a little skeleton in the family closet right there. So I might be part Irish. I guess I have to do one of those like ancestry things where they do a DNA test. Find out where I'm from.
23andMe all the way. Do it up.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you first is I love hearing the origins of names. And so first I wanted to hear, is there a story behind your nickname, Bucket? I'm assuming that you weren't influenced by Buckethead.
No, it was. It comes from that. So you know that song, "Long Shot, Kick the Bucket." And the
Yeah.
Long shot, kicky bucket comes from that. And it wasn't actually my name. I had back in the day when the Lower East Side was still rough and ready. I had a 38 snub-nosed revolver I used to carry around in a shoulder holster, and that was the bucket. It wasn't me. The bucket kicker was the gun, because I shot a beer bottle out of Lionel's hand one time when he was annoying me, so it came from that.
Good old Lower East Side.
Yeah, so nothing out of the ordinary. Totally normal, you know. But I mean, the Lower East Side in the early '80s was pretty wild place. So you had to make sure you were protected. Let's say.
Definitely. Did you also live down there as well?
Yeah, I lived on 8th Street and Avenue B. I moved to New York in 1980 to work at Forbidden Planet comic book. So I don't know if you're familiar with that. And I got a flat immediately on 8th and B, which was a pretty bad neighborhood at that time. And everybody was saying, well, you can't go live down there because you're like a white guy. I said, dude, I've just spent 3 years living in Brixton in London, so none of this shit impresses me at all. So, but it was great. I had a duplex apartment, like a 4-bedroom duplex apartment with a spiral staircase and a balcony and a washer dryer for $300 a month.
What?
Did you have like 40 roommates there, or like how many people?
I had three roommates.
I think, yeah.
But it was cheap because nobody wanted to live there, and the guy who owned it didn't want to rent it to people who he thought was going to trash the place. But I guess he thought just because I got an English accent, I must be like posh and cultured and stuff. So, so he gave it to me. Little did he know. Yeah.
Jokes on him. Jokes.
Yeah.
Roots or.
But that's that whole neighborhood now. When I go back to New York and I go down there, and God, what happened to this place? It's like unrecognizable. It's like all trust fund kids living in $3,000 a month apartments.
Yeah.
Shanks
just blipped off the planet.
Didn't I just say to get home? Look at this guy. Look at this guy.
In the first place.
Sorry, what?
Is this the drive-through interview?
We're asking rhetorical questions because we know the answer to them already. It's Dan. So Dan is the answer, and also the cause. So you're like, yeah.
And we're just stuck looking at him.
Yeah, we just look at his name, and it's like.
So anyway, that's the story of how I ended up on the Lower East Side. But I thought it was great because at that particular time, it was just a haven for like creative people, like artists and writers and painters and poets and musicians. So for me, it was great. And everybody, like, there was a whole bunch of like mom and pop Polish and Ukrainian places down there, like eateries and bakeries and butchers and bakers. So it was like a really awesome place, I thought. And then he said, well, aren't you scared to live there? I said, not at all. It's like the best place in the city. And now it's a shame what happened to it.
Did you know Joe Queer at the time? Because I know he was saying he lived down there at some points, and he was telling us stories about trying to.
Who you saying?
Joe Queer from the Queers.
From the Queers.
No, I didn't know him, but I hung out a lot with the guys from like Murphy's Law.
Okay.
And the guys from the Cro-Mags. We had a rehearsal room on 181 Avenue A, and we shared it with the Bad Brains,
right.
and Murphy's Law, the Cro-Mags, a band. What was Scott's band called? Anyway, and then the Beastie Boys also were in that.
Yeah, nice. Very nice.
So our drummer actually produced the first Beastie Boys record.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. So seven steps to the Toasters.
Yeah, who needs Dan? We don't need Dan. Get out of here.
I've actually got a really funny Harley story.
Yo, please share.
Because Harley always like comes off like I'm this tough guy. I said, dude, I remember when he was like 12. And we had this bar that we used to hang out called the Park Inn Tavern, which had some very colourful people working at it. The guy who was the barman was this guy called Aid McSpade, who had this finger cut off. So when he was going to flick you off, you had to do this. You know?
Read between the lines. Yeah, read between the lines.
and the guy who was the bouncer was this like old. He was probably about 50, Ike the Dyke was his name. He'd been like a doo-wop singer in the 50s. And I was like, Ike, he used to terrorize all the NYU kids who used to come in there because we didn't want that type in the bar, like lowering the tone. So he used to like run them out of the bar by standing behind them and saying, if we're in jail, I'll make you my girl, So he was a great guy. And after one time, I said, why they call you Ike the Dyke? And he says, but the lesbians call me that. They don't have that. So these are the kind of guys in the bar. It's like an incredible place. It's before it all got ruined by gentrification and by you buying he's back. What'd you do? Stop or something?
Yeah. What? Yeah, it's when bars had real character. Like it had people that were there, like for basically almost like a community setting where people just go there to hang out and get to know people, and like with similar interests. And even
it's kind of when I put the band together. One of the first guitarists I was jamming with was Aid McSpade's brother, Teddy McSpade, who was actually an awesome chef in some swanky hotel upstate. So it was guys from Forbidden Planet, my roommate Steve, who was the keyboard player, and Teddy McSpade and a couple of other local guys. So that was like the first lineup for the band before we recorded the 7-inch in 1983. So it was all like local guys who didn't know anything about ska music, which was pretty interesting. So they kind of picked it up as it went along.
So it was really like starting from scratch, like.
Yeah, well, the only reason I started the band is when they sent me here from London to work at this shop. They said you got to organise things, which basically meant fire everybody and find people and train them because nobody here really knew how to work properly. And when it became, yeah, and so when it became obvious that I was going to be here for more than the 6 months, I thought, well, I'm going to have to do something. So I put the band together, which has started with just some guys that work as a jam band, and then it agglomerated into being the Toasters. I mean, originally it was like the name of the band was called the Bouncers for a while, and not Bob Marley for a minute, and then the Toasters. So by the time the Toasters rolled around, it was actually we were actually playing out. We were playing on playing at the punk clubs on the Lower East Side, like 7th Avenue A and places like that. Before we got our residency at CB's in 1982, they used to have Hilly Crystal was a great guy, and he used to support the local bands. And so on Tuesday nights, he'd have what he called like an audition night, where he would just get bands to come in who nobody really knew anything about, and he'd just like showcase local bands, and you got paid a percentage of the door. I think we made $22 for our first gig at CB's. But
not bad.
But he liked us so much that he put us on the weekend. So he played a show on Friday, and that went really well. And so then what that turned into, he just said, do you want to have a residency here? Just play once a month, and I give you a Friday or Saturday night, and you can put together your own bill. So I could book the whole night with other ska bands or whomever. So then what we did is we talked to Jimmy G and all the punk guys and hardcore guys who were doing the hardcore matinee on a Sunday. So we'd put the ska night the night before that. So there'd be the ska night on a Saturday and the hardcore matinee on Sunday. So people out of town could come in and see, get two shows, more bang for their buck. So that worked out great.
Well, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's basically leads me to, because it sounds like it's one of those kind of things, CBGBs, that whole lifestyle and the way that people kind of used to live down there as far as musicians. It brings up a good question, is you've been in the game, as it were, for decades. And
yeah, a long time.
Yeah, you've been for quite a long time. Like
one of the guys who was drinking buddies at the bar was Wayne Kramer from MC5. You know those guys. So he used to hang out. He used to hang out at the pub, and Ivan Julian from the Voidoids, Richard Hell, all those kind of guys.
Oh, yeah, Richard Hell.
So it was kind of it was just basically you could look down the bar and it's all dudes from like punk bands, famous punk bands in there. So it was quite a fertile bed to grow my vegetables in.
Yeah. So I got a question for you then, because since you've had like this rich history in the scene, what are the highlights for you? Looking back, what are the highlights for you? And if you can, share some of the lowlights and what those lessons has taught you as an artist, as a musician, and as a person growing, basically growing and having an entire life within the music industry.
Well, I think I'll start with the low point. I think the low point was having to close Moon Records in 2000. Basically just being like a pawn in the game of market forces. So that was a drag having to close that. But I mean, what a fantastic roller coaster ride that was, starting from nothing and basically, putting out records for anybody who's anybody. So that was a great time. But I think my favorite point out of all of it was doing this tour in 1993 called Skavuvi Tour. And that was us and the Selector and the Satellites and the Special Beat, which was an amalgam. It was like a super group of guys from the Specials and the English Beat. So it was Rankin Roger and Neville and who else? Nat and Horace and Roddy Radiation. So it's basically like a super group, and we did 50 dates in the USA over the course of 2 months. So I think that's basically the high. For me, that's the high point of ska in the USA. If you kind of discount what happened in the 90s, which I don't really consider as being totally ska music. So I think that tour was probably the high bar, and that was what kicked off the whole ska boom of the 90s, in my opinion.
It was where I grew up in Florida. Ska was huge.
Mm-hmm.
It was like every weekend there were shows. Every weekend you could go see a ska show at the State Theater, the Refuge. We used to all go.
I mean, we used to joke that like going into bonus points to the State Theater was one of the most impossible things you could achieve because those guys were so stingy at the door. But but we just sell that place out on a regular basis, and that's like 900 people in Tampa, which is not a huge city. So I mean, Florida was one of the great focal points. Same Chicago, New York, Boston, LA, San Francisco. Those were the places where everything blew up first.
That's awesome. So, what lessons would you take back from that entire time you've had? Like, when we look back and be like, man, if I had to do this all over again, I would have changed this. This is the one thing that I'd go back and be like,
Well, I would have probably changed everything. But I mean, people say I wouldn't have changed the things. I do, of course you would, because it's like a constant learning process. Mm-hmm. I mean, what I should have done at Moon Records is sign bands up for multiple albums with options, which I didn't really want to do. It was actually an artist co-op, so it was set up as like a 50-50 after expenses kind of deal, which nobody really understood. But what I should have done is just, being a regular record company asshole and sign everybody up for like 7 records and own all their rights. And the label would still be around, but I didn't do that, so whatever. I'd have that one back. But I think I would probably have started touring globally earlier as well. The record company was great, but it really stopped me doing what I really like doing, which is playing. Not that I've done too much of that in 2020.
Yeah.
2020.
Well, your cup says it all. Yeah, have your cup and your cup holder. Was that from your friends? Yeah, it's your friends.
It was my buddy's bar. Yeah.
Nice.
Is that inverted for you? Can you read it?
No,
I can read it. The Main Street Bar.
Yeah, it's my buddy Tony.
Is that San Antonio, Texas?
Yeah, and
right, cool.
He made that. I thought, great, that's great. So I got about 100 of these koozies off him, and I give them to everybody.
Oh,
he needs to upgrade it to 2021 sucks now, since we seem to be the second year of this thing.
Every year should suck. Every year should suck.
Yeah, I have to go next week and get my COVID shot finally, because they haven't really rolled that out very well in Texas.
Utilities in general, they haven't rolled out in Texas very well.
It's incredible. That's incredible. But I mean, the whole thing is that people in the Texas state legislature want to uphold those prices because all their buddies are giving them kickbacks for it. So I think there's a bunch of, here in San Antonio, it's a blue city, which is useful. So our local utility is owned by the city, and so we're actually suing all the power providers in Texas right now. We'll probably win. So we're not going to get a penny passed on to us. But some people here haven't been that lucky, and a lot of people have had their savings wiped out on 1 month's electric bill.
That's nuts. That is nuts.
Yeah, it really is nuts. Like people getting $17,000 electric bill for like 1 month. It's pretty crazy.
Crazy. Wow.
Oh, that makes my...
Oh my goodness. How did you wind up in Texas? I'm just curious.
That's another long story.
I love stories.
After 9/11, I was a little bit fed up living in New York because it was kind of, to me, it kind of so radically changed the atmosphere in the city, and I wasn't convinced at all about the story that got rolled out about who did that and how it happened and why it happened. I'm convinced that the American government had their finger in that pie. And so we decided that we were going to move the family somewhere and get out of New York, because my wife had been working in a fashion business there for 20 years, and she pretty much burnt out on that. That's where I met Donald Trump, by the way, in her fashion shows. He was an ass back then. But so we were looking. I'll come back to him. But we were looking to move somewhere else in the US, but we'd still be faced with a lot of, if you want to downsize things like health insurance and property tax, all that nonsense. So we ended up moving to Spain in Europe. And we stayed there for about 11 years. All my kids have dual nationality and speak Spanish and everything, which is quite useful. And then my youngest daughter, my youngest twin, was having a lot of trouble at school and a lot of problems, psychologically and stuff. So we had to come back to the US and try to get her away from all the people she was hanging out with. It was kind of the only way to help her, was just like remove her from the equation. And I didn't want to send her to boarding school or anything stupid like that. So we ended up moving back to the US, and that happened to be in San Antonio, Texas, which I wouldn't have bet on. But as it turned out, Texas was good to us, and San Antonio is a great town. It's like a oasis of blue in a sea of red assholes.
Yeah, Austin's turning that way too, I think, right? Yeah. Austin's kind of that way too now.
Yeah, but Austin now is like, it's not what it used to be 20 years ago. It's like really gentrified up there. And, people moved there because it was cool and they had South by Southwest and all this, but it's so expensive there now that all the venues are having to close. So it's kind of like shot itself in the foot.
It happens to the best of areas.
Don't try driving through Austin during the day. You want to kill yourself. But anyway, the Donald Trump thing. My wife used to have these fashion shows. Well, Betsy Johnson was a company she worked for, and they used to have these fashion shows at the tents in Bryant Park in New York every year. And Donald's wife at that time was, what was her name? Ivanka. And so he used to go and he'd go sit in the front row. And of course, he's such a twat that he would try to get back in the dressing rooms, where all the girls were changing, so he could go like ogle them. It's like a really creepy dude. But they used to hire these Brooklyn b-boys to run security, like Run DMC guys, all those guys crew, all these like big dudes from Brooklyn, and he tried to get in there, and the guy goes to him, you can't go back there. And Trump says to this guy, he said, "Don't you know who I am?" And he said, "Yeah, you're the dude who's not going back. You're the dude going back there." And then he tries to like push his way through, but the guy's just like muscle up like this, and he's like, can't get by him. It's like funny as shit, dude. So, and then this guy ends up becoming president of the United States. It just goes to show,
Yeah, unfortunately, well, at least it's over. That's the one thing that we can all agree on. It's a good thing that happened in 2021.
It's not over yet. There's that guy caused some trouble.
Well, he's been causing trouble way before he was president. So
I just hope that one of these financial lawsuits sticks on him, so that'll take him out of the equation if they send him to jail.
That and criminal lawsuit would be nice. That would be a nice one too. Oh, God. Please.
Thanks.
I'm back. So I've changing the subject a little bit. I've seen a lot of interviews where you've been very vocal about the MP3 and how that's been damaging to the business. Do you still feel the same way?
It's destroyed the music industry.
Do tell.
Well, the MP3 was created by Sony Music, after they had been collaborating for a long time with Philips in Europe. As a matter of fact, the guy who invented the cassette just died a couple of weeks ago. but they had been working with the Japanese to create the CD. And from that, Sony developed the idea of the MP3, which was like a storage mechanism which wouldn't require warehousing and wouldn't require shipping. So they were looking at it as a way to cut a lot of the overhead in the music business, where traditionally you would have to produce tone carriers, like whatever's at the time, LPs, cassettes, CDs, 8-track, whatever the heck you're selling music to people. So you had to make these things and then put them in warehouses and then truck them around and then stick them in boxes and send them to distributors and send them to shops. So Sony were looking at a way to get rid of all those expenses. And so they came up with the MP3, which at the same time is, in my opinion, sounding like shit, probably like the worst musical format you could find.
Compressed audio in general, yeah, it's going to be so much less. Yeah.
So this was going to be like the silver bullet, which was going to basically give them a monopoly over the industry, because they could, at that point, control the whole supply chain, which is supposed to be antitrust anyway. So not only do Sony own the studios, but they also own the record label and the distribution and the label and the means of production, which in this case would be CD or MP3. So that's what they designed it to do. But I think they didn't expect kind of what happened, because the cat got out the bag, and all of a sudden people got hold of MP3, and people like the P2P file sharers, like that guy Daniel Ek, who's now the chairman of Spotify. He started out as a P2P site, like what was that one? The name escapes me. But at the
Napster?
Yeah. So at the end of the 90s, when Napster hit, and I saw at Moon our sales chart just basically plummet, like 90 degrees down, because Napster was catering to exactly the same people who were our core market at that time, which was like college-age kids, high school-age kids, who were all about that kind of technology, because they were all getting into tech media. So when I saw that, I thought, well, that's kind of going to be the beginning of the end for record labels, which was one of the main reasons I decided to close Moon, because I kind of saw where everything was going with that. And to my mind, it's destroyed the music business. But I also suspect, because I'm a conspiracy theorist, I see a conspiracy in everything. I think Sony did it on purpose to drive their competition out of business. And by competition, I mean the other record labels. But they didn't realize that, the cat was going to get out the bag and be uncontrolled and fuck them up as well. So I think it was done deliberately by them, but they lost control of it,
Mm-hmm. And you think it's taken away from the way artists make music too, like they earn a living, make music because of the MP3, like it completely destroys it, like their way of making a living, where musicians just have to tour now to make music, tour to make money.
Well, I think artists are adaptable, so artists have to find ways to ply their craft, and you have to adapt yourself to what the geography is. And in this sense, there's no label support anymore. And that derives from the fact that, traditionally labels would use the money they got from their back catalogs, which was always the engine of the music business, like having a really good back catalog of stuff. If you look at those back catalogs of like Atlantic Soul or Motown or something like this. And so the age of all the entrepreneurs in the business who would say, well, you know what, I'm going to start a label and we're going to specialize in this one sound. People like Berry Gordy at Motown, or Chris Blackwell at Island Records, or what was the guy? I can't remember the guy who put together the Atlantic Lava Soul catalog, but or Stax Motown, labels like this, where you're going to have, this is the sound, and we're going to have a whole bunch of artists and put together this catalog, the 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 releases, and use that the profits we get from that is what we're going to use to develop and promote new artists. So all of a sudden, if you've got no sales of the back catalogue, there's no money to promote new artists. So what that's done is it's basically forced most of the record companies out of business, and B, all the record companies exist now they all look the same. They have their generic boy band, they have their generic hip hop band, they have their generic female singer-songwriter. They're all the same, you know. So what it's done is it's just totally destroyed indie distribution, totally destroyed the power of indie labels, and totally destroyed the power of indie musicians. I think that was done on purpose.
Yeah, you mean following a formula, pretty much. Like, is what it sounds like. What they're doing is just following a specific formula to make the same things over and over again, and basically dumbing down the masses to ingest this one thing they're going to keep feeding them and feeding them over and over again.
Here's the shit we're making. Eat this, you know.
Some shit sauce for your shit salad.
Yeah, that you're going to like download and listen to on your phone, which is probably like the worst way to listen to music, because like listening to an MP3 on this, it's like, dude, come on. And there's a funny story attached to that. At some point, I was having this same kind of rant. I was in Spain, and I'm sitting in the kitchen. I had a different kind of fuck you cup at the time. And so I'm going to talking to this Spanish guy, and this is all in Spanish, but my daughter was eavesdropping because she understood. And I was just bemoaning the fact that, you know, people used to go out and buy an album, 12-inch vinyl, and you'd listen to the record and you'd have this whole thing where you could read, or there'd be a pull-out book or whatever, and all the credits and little story and pictures of the bands. It's kind of like this whole like multimedia event going on. So after that, my daughter says, I put the phone down and my daughter says, Dad, what's an album? And I'm like, I go, shit, this girl has never ever gone into a record store and bought a record. You know, it's all like stuff she listens to on the phone or downloaded. I mean, that's over Spotify, which is don't get me started on that. But so I took her into town and I took her to a record store and I gave her €10. I said, go find. They had a huge used section. I said, go find one of the bands you like. Go buy a CD and we'll take it home and play it. But she was part of a whole generation that had never bought a record, and that's all happened in the last 20 years.
It's weird just to think that there were like the albums, because I have a you don't see it behind me because of this, but I have a record collection, and like going through it, I have like Pink Floyd albums that I listen to on LP, and then if you listen to an MP3 of it, and then go back to like Dark Side of the Moon and listen to it on surround sound on vinyl, it's a whole different world.
The soundscape, the texture of the soundscape on vinyl is incredible, because on MP3 you lose all of that bass, you lose all of the room sound. It's like quite expensive. Yeah. So my daughter now has, I mean, even though she's a Spotify fiend, she actually bought a record player. So there is been talking to people, talk them out of their madness.
It's good, but at least you're rubbing off on her a little bit. You know, you're getting that, you're getting the message in there, so that's good.
Well, the thing is, I mean, she's the ultimate Spotify consumer, and I look at her playlists, and I mean, she's 23 now, but she has like bands like Nina Simone on there, and Fela Kuti, the Nigerian guy, bands like this, who under normal circumstances she would never been able to discover them, because you try finding records from them in the normal record store. So what Spotify has done is become the biggest digital jukebox of recorded music available to humankind, which is on the upside. Unfortunate thing is they don't pay any of the artists, so from my point of view, they suck.
Yeah, that's like if you go to a bar and they have those jukeboxes that you just choose, and it's like you could have a live band doing that, playing tunes for people, and instead you put up a jukebox or a DJ who just presses a play.
People aren't really interested in live bands anymore. I think it's because a lot of kids have the attention span of a gnat, you know, and they're not used to sitting through 90 minutes of anything, let alone a band. I mean, they they might buy one of your tunes. But I think it's, seeing bands live is another format that's kind of dying out. I think I'm personally somewhat protected because being in a niche market, ska music, we're like more protected from what's happening in the mainstream. But I think that's one of the things that's happening, and one of the worries I have after this whole COVID fiasco is that a lot of the live venues that I had to shutter up during it are never going to be able to open back up. So what is that going to do to the availability of touring venues going forward? I'm actually kind of worried about that.
And a lot of places are closing, which makes it even worse at that point.
So it's a doom and gloom scenario,
yeah,
from my point of view. And for me, I'm a guy that's like getting towards the end of my musical career, but for people starting up, I'm worried for them. It's like, how are these bands going to do it without selling their soul to the devil and take these 360 deals from record companies who are going to exploit them and make money out of them for however long and then get rid of them. I mean, I once saw a Billboard Records article, which I wish I kept because it was awesome, and it was just excuse me. It was just about the music business by the numbers, and they were just like breaking down record deals about how you've got even if you get a major record deal, you have only a 1 in 7 chance, 14% of getting out the first year of it, which is like a pretty high attrition rate. And then they were saying that longevity in the music business is 7 years. So most bands would have a maximum life expectancy of 7 years under the major label business model. So a lot of people say, why do you never sign a major record deal? So, well, that's why. Because I didn't want to give over control of my catalog, which I still own all of it. I want to make that money myself. And even though my pizza might be, I don't like pizza, but even though my pizza might be smaller, I have a much bigger slice out of it,
Mm-hmm. And you can still sell your albums on the road too, which is another good thing, which a lot of bands, because they signed to a major, they don't have the power to do.
Well, to be honest, I mean, we make way more money on the road selling merchandise than we do on ticket sales. And I tell the promoters who want to put us on, I say, look, I want to keep the ticket price as low as possible. So if that means, us getting a smaller guarantee on the front to get more people in there, I'd rather do that, because people are going to have more money for beer and more money to buy our merch. So and so everybody makes that. If the guy has a good night on his bar, he'll be happy and we'll be back. And the people can come in and buy a record and see the band and get a couple of beers, and that means the customers, the fans are really happy. So it's like more bands should be doing that. I think ticket prices are way too high, and we should go back to having $5 and $10 tickets.
Yes. And what about these pay-to-play bullshit?
That kind of sucks. We've had a couple of bands who bought slots on our tours, but the booking, that's like a booking agent thing, which I didn't really like doing. But I mean, I guess that's just the way some people want to run their business. But the whole pay-to-play thing, or local bands having to sell tickets for promoters, that all sucks. All sucks.
Definitely.
Crazy.
Yeah. Well, we've had to do that too, so it's like one of those things. So.
Yeah, no doubt. But I would be happier talking to promoters. Say, look, dude, give me less of a guarantee, and don't do that. Just put the local bands on. Don't make them sell tickets. Just maybe not pay them, but don't make them dip in their own pocket to get on the stage. That's no way to build a local scene, is to exploit the local bands.
Absolutely.
And it's sad because it feels like the local scenes are almost just obsolete now. It's especially in these kinds of genres.
Nobody's done anything to promote them. When we're all about that, and so we would make sure that when our bands went out on tour, that all the local ska bands got on the bill, and that we supported them. We put records out for them. We distributed their own self-produced stuff. But nobody's doing that anymore. The whole the whole DIY scene has collapsed, I think. I mean, there's some of it left in the ska scene, some of it left in the hardcore scene, but the rest of it all gone. We have some work to do, my friends.
Yes.
That's true.
So moving on to my next question, there's so much social commentary in your songs, which I love, and a lot of political motivation. I love Don't Let the Bastards Grind You Down. Not necessarily political, but just something that is just still relevant today, and anyone can relate to that song, and the video's great. But I wanted to just ask, like, in the current political climate, now that you've expressed your love for Donald Trump, are you still writing politically motivated songs now, or is there anything in specific that you're very passionate about that's going on in the world?
Yeah, I mean, I have a bunch of half-written songs, and what I have to do is I have to get motivated. As a matter of fact,
All right.
I bought this guy because I can't really set up my rig in the house, so I bought this. I'm here trying to finish these half songs, but I have a couple of songs which are kind of Donald Trump inspired. But I've been if you can ask, I've almost kind of been too angry to write anything.
See, I got one too. I got the little mini bass, little mini Q bass.
Oh yeah, there you go. But
yeah, it's
but what,
target that it almost like takes no creativity to write about him.
I mean, to be frank, I've been so consumed by this guy, and it's like, when are we going to get rid of this guy? And thank goodness that people came to their senses and voted this guy out. I mean, we came this close to having like a military dictatorship in this country.
Oh my God!
A lot of people have no clue how close we came to the whole thing going, Nazi Germany style. But the juices are flowing.
Good.
Yes, please. I would love to hear it, toaster style. Definitely some Trump isms.
I'll show you the lyrics.
All right, that's cool.
Awesome.
Oh, nice.
Buckets, little black book.
Black book of buckets.
There's this one song called "Turn Back Time." See, that's how close that's getting. And then there's another song called "Now Is the Time." So I guess I have to change the title on that because I can't have it. So I actually have two songs here that are close to being finished.
Nice.
So you can expect a 7-inch single right to this.
Nice. Are they gonna be back to back? Have like both songs back to back and be like a cool.
Yeah, I'll probably do an A and B side and have it like the time 7-inch.
Nice. Now is the time 7-inch. I like it. Now is the time.
Yeah, that's the time. But I mean, one of the problems is that I don't have any of my band here in San Antonio. They're all in the Toasters diaspora in Europe or in Virginia or DC, wherever they're all living. So I can't actually get them together here to do anything at the moment.
How does that work for you?
Practice?
What's that?
How do you practice? How does that work?
We never practice.
Do you just go on stage and you're like, all right, let's see how it turns out?
You better have worked on your stuff, okay?
Yeah.
Everyone, let's go. Andiamo.
Well, I send them. I mean, I'll record these tunes and just send to the guys. But one of these tunes I'm working on with a European band, so we're doing the recording via email. I'll send them parts of the tune, and they'll put the horn track on and send it back. So we're constructing it that way.
Nice.
So one of these tunes is going to be with primarily Dutch musicians, two Dutch guys, two Dutch guys and two German guys, and then the other I'll probably do a rough with some guys here and some Texas guys.
Oh, nice. Oh, well.
You guys are number one, I'm losing my voice, and number two, I have to go and buy a bicycle.
All right.
All right.
It's been a pleasure. If you ever want to do a song with us, let us know.
Yeah, well, we'll do it again because I'm sure I didn't get to answer half your questions. And I have quite a few more rants, trust me.
Oh, I would love to hear it. We can do a part 1, part 2. That's fine with us. Just let us know when you're available.
We'll do another one next month. How's that?
Sounds good to me.
All right. Well, nice to meet you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for coming on.
Where's your NYC Ska shirt that you should be shamelessly promoting on this?
Oh, wait, hang on. Wait.
Oh, here we go. Oh, there it is.
Oh, there you go.
There it is.
Oh, that's a good one. That artwork was actually, we stole that. It was actually nose art from like a World War II bomber.
Nice.
Dropping the Germans at World War II. So
they don't need that anymore. They don't need that anymore.
But I thought the artwork was cool, so we stole it. All right.
Good.
Over now. Nice talking to you.
It was a pleasure.
Right,
thank you.
Thanks a lot.
What do I do? Press this red X here?
Yeah, just go off. You're good to go.
Whoa!
Oh, this guy.
That was only part 1, you guys.
You heard it here first. We're having a part 2
of the legend bucket of the Toasters.
Famous
New York ska, in your face.
Hey,
with a boot kick.
That's gonna be awesome. He has so many stories, and like it's so rich with like New York City punk ska history behind it. It's pretty awesome.
So much history.
Trumpisms.
Oh man,
we can't forget about that.
They were very humorous. I mean, anyone that finished watching this will know what we're talking about. So stay tuned for part 2.
Stay tuned.
Yay!
Yeah.
Out.
Elsie's out.
Gang on! Oi! Oi! Oi!
1, 2, 3, 4.
Oi! Oi! 1, 2, 3, 4.
Hey, Lousies!
What up?
Woo! What's going on? Oh my goodness. Do we have a rare treat for you guys at home tonight?
Medium
what do
rare.
we have, guys?
A medium rare steak.
Wait, an interview so nice, we had to do it twice.
Postponed.
We got bucket from the toaster.
We got to be continued.
We've got some bread, we got some butter. All we need is a toaster. Why are you shaking your head at me in dismay?
Because the drummer did not do the proper bad joke.
Well, when does he ever get jokes?
Oh, he gets joked.
Yeah. Are we going to have the joke? Am I at the joke? I don't know. But anyways, we got bucket from the toasters.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bucket.
Yeah.
So we've got the bucket tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Bucket of fun.
You like ska?
If you like ska, this is your Scala day.
Yeah.
Yes. Legendary.
The legendary bucket of the Toasters, ska band since 1981. Most ska bands don't make it from 1981 to 1982.
Don't make 8 minutes. That's 8 minutes.
Most ska bands don't make it to the trumpet solo. But Bucket has lasted a literal lifetime as a successful and internationally renowned ska band. And we'll actually be playing with the Toasters. When are we playing with the Toasters, guys?
September 17th in Brooklyn.
September 17th. We'll be playing with the Toasters at
Kingsland.
At Kingsland. We're going to be the Lousekast Toasters.
Oof.
Yeah.
I'll definitely edit that out.
So get ready for the Lousekast Toasters, the Lousekast twosome.
Oof. That just went down with flames.
Yes, get ready because Bucket is going to be here and we are going to get to hear again part 2, Dose, the sequel, the continuation of
Fuck it, 2 with the bucket, you know.
Cheers.
Bucket.
2 with the bucket.
Bucket.
So
let's get started.
I see you guys are going to be playing with us in Brooklyn.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're very excited. He said we're going to be
How did you finagle that?
Well, you know, Dan does some favors every once in a while.
Yeah, I do a lot.
Dan's very talented.
I on my knees a
He's
lot.
very talented.
I'm on my knees a lot.
Dan took one for the team, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I did.
Uh-oh. Well, now you owe him. Buy him some beers or something.
Quid pro quo.
Yeah, so we're telling everybody it's the Lousekast Toasters.
Yeah, there you go. There's got to be a good anagram in that somewhere, when you think.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being back with us. We won't keep you too long since this is kind of the sequel to the first interview.
Yeah.
And
I did a mammoth session last night. I was doing one of these with the guys from like LA Ska, Eric Kohler, and that was great because they were like trawling back through some of the seminal moments of Moon Records and the Ska Movie tour and everything. So that was good fun.
That's awesome.
Cool. Yeah, I was actually going to touch a little bit on some of that later as well.
Yes, I was too.
Cool.
So who starts? Val, why don't you start this one off?
Well, actually, so I actually wanted to talk about, so I kind of wanted to touch on, so you guys had a pretty significant amount of commercial success with the animated series with Kablam on Nickelodeon and a couple other things. Don't Let the Bastards Grind You Down, which is one of my favorite songs of you guys, on an animated series as well. I kind of wanted to know, how did those things come about? Were you actively looking for that, or did it just kind of fall into your lap?
No, and what I say about that is, I mean, there's always a lot of people wanting to rep you for those things, but pretty much every single placement we had for that kind of thing, like in commercials or advertising, was the clients came looking for us. So I think it's a waste of time having somebody represent you. But I think one of the advantages we had having the record label based in New York City was a lot of those people also had their offices there. So, we had been working with MTV pretty closely through the 90s, and starting with that guy, Matt Pinfield, who was a big Ska fan. Mm-hmm. And we'd been able, through him, to get a lot of our videos premiered on MTV through him, and weasel into some regular play. But by the mid 90s, I mean, we'd been doing a lot of shows for them, and then that show Kablam, which was on the Nickelodeon offshoot, that came up. Originally, the guy who created that show, like the cartoonist, had wanted Bad Manners to create the soundtrack, but Bad Manners, wouldn't do it, whatever. And so they asked us if we wanted to do it, and I said, yeah, sure, I can do that. And so I submitted a couple ideas for a theme tune, and then they said, well, how do you feel about writing all the music for the show, all the bumper music? And so we ended up writing about 120 pieces for them. It turned into like a major project. But what we did, we were in the studio doing the pre-production and tracking for Hard Band for Dead. So what I did is I just took a lot of those themes and repackaged them and played them like cowboy style, whatever, cowboy ska, and sent them up to Nickelodeon. They loved it. So that happened. And interesting enough, I can't say how many people have come up to me over time and said, that's what got me into ska music. I didn't know anything about ska music, but I watched that show and I got turned on to you guys. So it just goes to show the power of television for young kids. And in this case, in a positive way. But then we could have been selling them like sugar-loaded cereal or like high-fat junk food. But it just goes to show how influenced kids are by what they see when the television is babysitting them instead of a human.
It's true.
Awesome.
Go for it.
All right. I guess it kind of spans into my question about the 90s and that period, because ska was going through that third wave, and you had a lot of bands coming in like you guys. And then
I hate that whole wave description.
Which was actually my question. It was like, how did you have any, like, what did you think of those bands around that time? Did you have any part with those bands, or you kind of were just doing your own thing? With like or you want nothing, like you said, you said you hated it, so you want nothing to do with those bands or anything like that?
Well, it was a little different for us because, I mean, number one, we were pretty well established at that point, and number two, I had the label. And we were playing a lot on the road, and so we were coming into contact with bands from every aspect of that. And what I wanted to do partly with the label was kind of find bands who I thought were like working hard in the scene and promoting their local scene and organizing shows and help to hook them up. And they weren't necessarily always the best bands in the world, but they were bands that I thought were worthy with some help, simply because of what they're doing for other people and helping establish the network, which was the most important thing that any contemporary ska band to that period could avail themselves of, was the existing network, which would help them get shows or help them get deals or help them get promoted. And that was way more important than individual bands themselves. But so many bands just couldn't understand that. Even bands on the label just couldn't understand why they should help other bands or why they should take the Moon catalog on the road and sell it, apart from the fact they make money. It's like, dude, the sum of the parts are greater than the whole, any one of the individual bands, even my own. And so, but so many people fail to realize that. It's incredible. There's a wasted opportunity for a great many bands that they didn't really get stuck into the network and use it.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Chivo.
Well, that pretty much kind of leads into my question. Are there any bands
Chivo, is that the Game of Thrones backdrop? Is that what that is?
Oh, that's it's actually that it's Knives Out. It's the background.
Okay.
The Daniel Craig movie. Yeah. So, my question for you is, are there any bands you listen to now that you feel are that you like, that you sit there and you're like, I like what they're doing. I like how they're doing things. They're not really well known, but I listen to them and I like the kind of camaraderie they're building up, and I like the kind of the personality they're bringing into the scene. Is there anyone that you think stands out for you?
Well, it's hard to say because I've tried to, in this sabbatical, my scabatical, this last 15 months, I've actually tried not to have anything to do with the music business at all, because I've realized that I'd been burned out and I really needed a break and needed to not do that. So why don't you ask me that again in 6 months when I go back out on the road? But I've been basically doing things which are like not musical, which have to do with my family and growing vegetables and whatever, and selling all my rubbish and buying a bike and just doing things I never had a chance to do in the last 30 years. But most of the bands I've been listening to are not ska bands at all, and they tend to be like older African fellows, like Manu Dibango and Maserati Queens and people like that. So yes and no. But I think I think there's lots of new ska bands ready to tool up and get back into the new framework, whatever that is. But I have to get back on the road first and see how that is in the post-nuclear strike world. As I lift up the cover of the bunker and come out, I mean, what is going to be there like facing us. We'll see. Let's talk about it in New York when I see you.
That's good.
Okay.
So yeah, I kind of wanted to my last little question here is I kind of wanted to touch base on so you've basically, like, because you've been in the business for so long and you've traveled and met so many different amazing acts. I know you said last time you guys played with the Selector, who I'm obsessed with. I love them. Was there anyone that you really either felt like anyone that you played with in all of these years, or maybe somebody who came to your show that made you feel starstruck, like I can't believe I'm playing with this person, and or are there particular bands that you just love playing with? You just mesh well, you love.
Well, I mean, every time I play with the Specials, I get that.
Oh, they're awesome. Yeah.
But I mean, it's like at this point we play with them so much that like Linval's a pretty good buddy. But that tour, you know, if I had to hark back and say, you know, I was starstruck when we did the Ska Movie tour with the Scatolites and the Selector and the lineup called the International Beat, which was guys from the Specials and the Beat. And for me, you know, I was organizing the tour on one level, but I was also like a maximum fanboy. But I came out the other end. I mean, you know, I ended up like not liking some of them, which is so it's like disillusioning on some level. But the other ones I like more than I did before, so it's kind of like a bittersweet thing. But that particular tour was the first time that, you know, bands from like the three generations of ska popularity, like Scatolites, two-tone bands, and the Toasters being like more contemporary. I shudder to say third wave band because I hate that terminology, but like 90s ska music. So that was a great experience. So yeah, but I mean, Selector also is my favorite two-tone band. You know,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
They also wrote more of their own tunes than the other bands did.
Did you ever play with the Bosstones by chance?
Yeah, but very early on, before they were really big, and actually somewhere I have the original demo that they sent me to be on Moon Records, and I passed on them. So maybe that's the one I should have had back.
No,
There's
I
always
knew
one.
them a long time ago, and it just popped into my head, and I'm like, I bet because the ska world is so small in so many ways, like they've probably played together at some point.
Yeah, it was very early on, and I want to say that the first time we played with them was in a place called Pearl Street in Northampton, Massachusetts. I think that's where we played with them. And I remember they were on Tang Records at the time because the record had just come in. So that would have been maybe maybe 1992, somewhere around that time frame. Oh, no, I have to ask Tiki when that was. He might remember better than me.
Cool. All right. You were talking about your label a little bit, Moon Ska Records. Can you go into a little in depth of how that all came about? Like, what was your influence to start Moon Ska Records and your own label?
What are you saying is that why did I start it? What's the question?
Yeah. So what inspired you to start your own label?
Well, the reason I started because in 1982 we put out a Toasters demo, which had been produced by this guy Richie. What's his last name? He was playing in a rockabilly band called the Lower East Side Rockers, and he was a buddy, and he did a 3-song demo for us, and the songs were what was on that? I have to remember what those songs were, man. But we'd taken that demo around all the record companies in New York, because at that point they all had New York offices, and pretty much every single A&R guy kind of like laughed us out and said, you know, you're never going to get anywhere playing ska music, you know. No Respect was the main tune off that.
Excuse us. Excuse us.
Yeah. And like Rodney Dangerfield. That was written for Rodney Dangerfield. And so at that point, I realized, like, wow, I mean, these people say, look, you're never going to get anywhere playing scam, that circus music. And I'm like, man, you guys don't get it. You know, you guys don't get it at all. Because none of them really had a clue what two-tone was or how huge that had been in England. And so I thought, wow, the only way to do it it's going to be to start our own label and put out our own stuff. That's the only way forward. And so that's what we did. We put out the Beat Up 7-inch in 1984 and the Recriminations EP in 1985, produced by Joe Jackson. You know who that guy is, right? and from that point, it was no looking back.
Very
Great.
cool.
That's awesome. All right.
All right. Well, you know, you said you had taken a sabbatical from the music industry.
Sabbatical.
Sabbatical, yes. So this is like the Val show. You just went down her alley. That's she's all about the terrible puns. Yes, but during your sabbatical.
This is what we're drinking tonight.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
A little bit of French red.
Yeah, I like it.
Face. Is that what is that? What kind of white is that?
That's a red.
It's a red. It's a French red.
It's a red, lady.
What they would call a Van de Table, like a table wine, but sometimes they're good.
Beautiful.
I'm a Sancerre fan myself.
All class all the time, man.
Classy AF.
Wine. White.
I like it. I'm a fan. So you had taken a sabbatical. You said sabbatical from the music industry, and what, if anything, do you like about the industry now that you didn't have then? And if not, what would you improve, or how would you change it to make it better moving forward?
Well, I would burn it all to the ground and build something completely new.
That's fair.
I'd take a tactical nuclear weapon and blow up the office of Spotify, you know.
Nice.
I'd string Daniel Ek up a hang, draw, and quarter him and like stick his head on a pike. I mean, this guy alone has destroyed the music business, you know. And people forget that this guy, he was also one of the original P2P pirates who was instrumental in Napster technology, which destroyed the independent music business back in 1998, which directly led to the demise of Moon Records for people like him. And here they are, like 30 years later, still fucking doing it, you know, like ripping artists off. It's incredible what they're doing and can get away with it. And the reason why they can come and like get my catalog, and I can't stop them using it because they're invoking something called a compulsory mechanical license, which is the legal medium they can use to get the rights to reproduce my tunes. And this is like legalese that goes back to the days of piano rolls from like the 1890s, when they had the player piano things, you know, you put the roll in. It's legal jargon that equates to that. And so what they're saying is like, well, we want to acquire your catalog to create piano rolls, you know, and because they don't actually end up physically producing anything and selling it, they don't have to pay the royalty. So they're using this loophole to get the rights to the music, to broadcast it, to my mind, illegally, and they don't have to pay. So Congress needs to wake up and enact some legislation that like fast forwards the legal framework of how music rights are acquired by 100 years, and they need to do it fucking right now.
Damn.
Look it up, a compulsory mechanical license. Look that up and you see what I'm saying. Make a note, Chiva.
I am putting it. I will.
That's your homework, son.
We'll talk about it in September.
Oh yeah, we'll get back on that.
You better have done your homework. You better have an answer for it. But I mean, these guys are using these like loopholes. They get a hold of people's catalogs, and I could get them to take it down, but I'd have to hire a lawyer. I'd have to take them to court. I'd have to spend $10, $20, $30,000 to take my music down. And in the meantime, yeah, of course, there's a certain amount of promotional value is there. So this is what they play on. And the only people who take it down are people like Taylor Swift. And when she did it, she was on the front page of every single newspaper, so she probably sold a few records. So people like that can afford to fight these vultures, but people like me can't.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Wow.
But if I ever meet Daniel Ek, I'll beat the shit out of him.
I'll invite him to the show in September.
I'll rub that bald little Danish head raw.
Well, thanks for fighting the good fight, man. It's refreshing to hear people who are still independent about, the independent industry and fighting the big corporate assholes that want to run everything. So
yeah, fuck those people.
Fuck those.
I'll tell you a story. There's one time, I think I want to say it's 97 or 98 probably. This guy Danny Goldberg, who was like a hotshot in the music business, he was like one of the $2,000 a week coke habit, and he wanted to acquire Moon Records to Polygram at that time, who was buying up a lot of labels. They controlled labels like Mercury. They just bought Motown. They just bought Island Records and subsumed them into this like catalog. And they wanted to buy Moon, so we had a meeting with them, and the offer was like $2 million, like take it or leave it. But for what they wanted for that is they wanted a 51% controlling stake in the label, but they wouldn't give any guarantees in terms of which bands were going to get canned, which bands were going to get put on the shelf, which bands were going to get picked up. I mean, essentially, they would have probably cherry-picked 5, 6, 7 bands off the label, and everybody else would have been finished. There were no guarantees for promotion, for videos or anything. And then I said to the guy, this guy Danny Goldberg, the hotshot, his satin bomber jacket, coke sniffing mofo, how much did it cost you guys? How much did it cost you guys to make a CD? And he couldn't tell me. And he turns to his production guy, so how much did it cost to make a CD? And he didn't know. So they had to call up their manufacturing plant in Indianapolis and ask the guy, now, how much did it cost to make a CD? And they didn't know. So I said to the guy, look, you want me to give you my baby that you're going to like vulturize, and you can't even, and you're going to sit here and tell me you don't even know how much it costs to make a record. What kind of record person are you? And so we didn't do the deal. My wife was mad because she thought I should have taken the $2 million, but it would have been like giving my baby to a cannibal, So
right.
I didn't do it.
Yeah.
Selling your soul to the devil, man.
Well, on second thoughts, maybe I should have done it. Maybe I should have done it. We'd be doing
I
this
had a
interview.
lightning-proofed house.
Who needs a soul? She doesn't have one. He definitely doesn't have one down there.
Well, people get so focused on money that they lose sight of soul. Soul, where's the soul?
Mm-hmm.
You can't. Money can't buy soul, man.
That's very true. That is very true.
Mm.
Well, before we go, because I know we don't want to keep you too long. Any plugs? Anything upcoming that Toasters fans and maybe people who haven't heard of the Toasters that might be coming out to the show to see you guys?
We're playing with this awesome band called the Lousekast in New York in September.
Really?
Yeah.
We've heard of them.
Hey!
Yeah. You guys should buy some tickets and go see them. But if you guys could help promote the Supernova Ska Festival, that'd be awesome. Even though it's sold out, it'd be great to give those guys as much promo as they rightly deserve. And at that event, we'll be premiering the new Ska Brewing Toasters beer at that time. So let's see what goes on with that. But
is that going to be at our show?
No, we won't get it until a few days after.
Damn it! Damn it!
Yeah, we would have gotten in on that at that beer, man.
I would have definitely bought some of that beer. I won't lie
For
to you, friend.
sure.
It's
Can
like
I
a
drink it and
it's
just
like
be
it's
like,
a it's
toasty?
it's an IPA lager, so it's kind of a mongrel of a brew, but I think I'm going to drink a lot of it.
Oh, come on! I love mongrel brews.
So wait, that's I have to ask a question before we go. So did you make this beer or did you work
No, the
with
guys
somebody?
from Ska Brewing Company in Durango, Colorado, are making it,
Uh,
and they made some beers for us before on various 25, 30, 40-year anniversaries. Well, this one's a 40-year anniversary, so they're making a brew specifically for that they're brewing in the Ouzelfinch Brewery in Virginia where we're playing. So it's a good hookup.
That's awesome. That's all. I'm so jealous now. I totally want to try this beer.
If you can't
Get
bring
the beer.
If you can't bring the mountain to Muhammad, bring the beer can to Virginia Beach.
yeah,
Virginia.
I'll be walking home with a two-tone hangover the next
There
day.
you go.
Next to two toes. Next to two toes.
Yeah, we're good. Well, thanks for having me on your show again, and thanks for wrapping it up. Can't wait to meet you guys. Can't wait to meet
it's
you
gonna
guys
be a pleasure.
personally in September.
Definitely.
Yes, we're looking
We're
forward,
looking forward to it. Definitely.
Thanks again for doing the second episode, and we look forward to seeing you in September.
Thanks, Bucket.
Thanks,
Well,
Bucket.
You're amazing.
Bye.
Thunderbirds are go.
Woo!
Oh my
Yeah, man. Yeah, you
Dang. Oh
killed
my
it.
God. Dude,
Bucket.
one day I want to grow up and have an accent like Bucket. I'm going to just talk in a British accent for the rest of my life.
Can't say the same.
What's wrong with that? No.
That's so rad. That was amazing. It's amazing to hear all of his stories and how much he's done in the punk and ska world. So we are so thankful that he came on, and make sure you stay tuned because in September we'll be
open for them.
posters and you'll get to see everybody.
You.
Yeah.
You.
Yeah.
Also,
So-
before we leave, we don't say this often enough, but thank you for watching our videos. I know we're clowns, but we do appreciate people watching this. It's fun. Like we have a good time being dumb.
Check out more of our
we do
videos.
have a
Got
good
more
time
coming
being
up.
dumb. That's what I'm going to put on my resume, having a good time being
That'll be on
dumb.
my tombstone. Had a good time being dumb.
All right, guys. So Lousy's out. We will see you guys on the next episode of Lousekast.
Cut it out.
Thanks, Bucket.